Sometimes, the most unexpected encounters can change everything. When a young man called a technician to fix a simple leak, he never imagined it would lead to a deeper connection. What started as an ordinary repair visit soon became the beginning of a story filled with tension, discovery, and the undeniable pull of attraction. Will this chance meeting unravel into something more profound? Or will the lines between professionalism and desire blur too far? Stay with us as this heartfelt journey unfolds. If you're captivated by stories of love, self-discovery, and emotional connections, don't forget to follow our page for more inspiring tales like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if faced with an unexpected spark like this? Let us know. I wasn't expecting much when I called the technician. It was a typical Tuesday evening, and my old kitchen sink had finally given up after weeks of slow drips. Living alone at 22 had its perks, but fixing a leaky pipe wasn't one of them. I scrolled through repair services until I found one that promised quick, reliable help. Little did I know, that call would set everything in motion. The next morning, the doorbell rang sharply. I opened the door, and there he was, a man in his mid-30s, rugged and self-assured. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his well-worn leather tool belt hung low around his waist. His name tag read Nathan, and the confidence in his piercing green eyes caught me off guard. "Morning," he said, with a casual smile, his voice warm yet professional. "You called about a leak?" I nodded, suddenly feeling awkward. "Yeah, it's in the kitchen, under the sink." He stepped inside, his boots clicking against the tiled floor. "Show me the way." I led him to the kitchen, trying not to stare as he set his toolbox down and crouched by the sink. Nathan moved with a kind of practiced ease that only years of experience could give. His hands were strong, deliberate, and capable, a far cry from my amateur attempts at tightening the valve. I caught myself staring at his forearms, the way his muscles flexed under his rolled-up sleeves, and quickly turned away, feeling my face flush. "This isn't too bad," Nathan said after a few moments of inspection. He glanced up at me, his green eyes meeting mine. "Looks like you've got a worn-out gasket. Easy fix." "Good to know," I replied, my voice a little higher than usual. I thought it was going to be something worse. He chuckled softly. "Nah, you caught it early. You'd be surprised how many people let these things turn into a flood." As he worked, I hovered nearby, pretending to check emails on my phone. But the truth was, I couldn't focus on anything except him. The way he leaned into the work, the quiet hum he made as he thought through the repair, and the way he glanced up occasionally to explain what he was doing, it all had me captivated. I found myself wondering what he was like beyond the uniform. Was he married? Did he laugh easily? The thoughts were intrusive, but I couldn't stop them. "So, what do you do?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Me? I'm a graphic designer," I said, relieved for the distraction. "Mostly freelance. I work from home." "Nice. Creative type, huh?" He smiled as he tightened a valve. "Bet that keeps you busy." "Yeah, it does. But it also gives me time to fix my own leaks." I laughed nervously, realizing how lame that sounded. Nathan smirked, clearly amused. "Well, next time leave the plumbing to the professionals." There was something about the way he said it. Light-hearted, but with an edge of something more. It lingered in the air between us, making me wonder if I was imagining the subtle shifts in his tone or the way his gaze lingered just a little too long. When he finally finished, Nathan stood and wiped his hands on a rag. "That should do it. Let the water run for a bit, but it shouldn't give you any more trouble." "Thanks," I said, reluctant to see him leave. "I really appreciate it." He picked up his toolbox but hesitated before heading for the door. "If you ever have any other issues, give us a call. We do more than plumbing, repairs, installations, whatever you need." "Good to know," I replied, my heart racing for reasons I couldn't quite explain. As I watched him walk out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time I'd see him. There was something unspoken, something lingering in the air that I couldn't put into words. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of anticipation, like maybe, just maybe, this small encounter could lead to something bigger. The days after Nathan left felt unusually quiet. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just the post-encounter buzz of meeting someone new. Still, I found myself replaying the interaction in my mind. The way his voice carried that easy charm, how his smile had lingered just long enough to stir something in me. It wasn't like I hadn't met attractive people before, but there was something about Nathan that made it hard to let go of the memory. He felt real, genuine, and the way he worked with such quiet confidence only added to the appeal. I stared at the sink one evening, testing the faucet again to make sure the leak hadn't returned. It worked perfectly, of course, but a thought crept into my head, one I tried to dismiss at first. What if I found another reason to call him? It wasn't logical, but the idea stuck, and before I knew it, I was scrolling through the list of services his company offered. "Minor repairs," I muttered to myself, reading the description on their website. My eyes landed on a section about cabinet installations, and suddenly I remembered the squeaky cabinet door that had annoyed me for weeks. Sure, I could probably fix it myself, but where was the fun in that? The next morning, I dialed the number, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. When the receptionist answered, I asked specifically for Nathan. "We can have Nathan come by tomorrow morning," she said cheerfully. "Does that work for you?" "Perfect," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The next day, the knock at my door came right on time. My heart leapt as I opened it to see Nathan standing there, toolbox in hand and the same easy smile on his face. "Back again?" he asked, his tone teasing but kind. "What's the issue this time?" "It's the cabinet door in the kitchen," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "It's been squeaking for weeks. Figured I should finally do something about it." Nathan gave a knowing nod. "Squeaky doors can drive you crazy. Let's take a look." As he worked, I found myself feeling less awkward and more at ease around him. We fell into an easy rhythm of conversation, and I learned more about him. He had been a technician for over a decade, starting out as an apprentice right after high school. He loved what he did because it kept him on his feet and gave him a chance to meet different people every day. "And what about you?" he asked, glancing up from the cabinet. "You seem pretty young to be living alone. What got you into graphic design?" I shrugged, leaning against the counter. "I've always loved creating things. Plus, it gives me the freedom to work from home. Not that I'm complaining, but it can get a little quiet sometimes." Nathan looked at me thoughtfully. "Yeah, I get that. Being on the road all the time has its perks, but it's not always easy to find time for people." I didn't know if he meant anything by it, but the comment struck a chord. There was something in his voice, an undercurrent of vulnerability that made me want to ask more. Before I could, though, he finished tightening the hinge and stood up. "That should take care of it," he said, testing the cabinet door. It opened smoothly without a sound. "Wow, that was fast," I said, impressed. "You make it look easy." "It's all about knowing where to apply the pressure," he said with a wink, and my stomach did a somersault. Nathan lingered for a moment, his gaze meeting mine. The air between us felt charged, and I could swear there was something unspoken in the way he looked at me. But just as quickly, he broke the moment, picking up his toolbox. "Anything else you need while I'm here?" he asked, his tone light but with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. I hesitated, not wanting him to leave just yet. "Not today," I said finally, "but I'll keep your number handy." He smiled, heading for the door. "You do that?" As the door closed behind him, I felt a mix of exhilaration and frustration. There was something happening between us, something I didn't fully understand, but couldn't ignore. And as I stood there in the quiet kitchen, I realized I didn't just want to see him again. I needed to. After Nathan's second visit, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time I walked into the kitchen, the smooth cabinet door reminded me of his easy smile, and the way he'd looked at me just a little too long. Was I imagining it? Overanalyzing every moment? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but it also fueled my desire to see him again. Days turned into a week, and I found myself creating scenarios in my head, trying to justify another call to his company. But nothing seemed reasonable enough to mask my true intentions. Instead, I settled for replaying our conversations in my mind, clinging to the subtle hints and fleeting moments that made my heart race. One evening, as I was scrolling through streaming options and half-heartedly eating dinner, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, and my stomach flipped when I saw an unknown number. Tentatively, I answered. "Hello?" "Hey, it's Nathan," came the familiar voice on the other end. "I hope I'm not calling too late." My heart skipped a beat. "Not at all. What's up?" "Well, this might sound odd, but I realized I left one of my tools at your place last time I was there," he said, a hint of embarrassment in his tone. "Would you mind if I stopped by to grab it?" "Oh, sure," I replied, trying to sound casual, even though my pulse was racing. "When do you want to come by?" "Would tonight be okay? I'm finishing up a job nearby." "Yeah, that's fine," I said, grateful for an excuse to see him again. "I'll be here." By the time Nathan arrived, it was already dark. The porch light illuminated his face as he stepped inside, his presence instantly filling the room. He had changed out of his work shirt into a simple black t-shirt, and the casual look only made him more appealing. "Thanks for letting me swing by," he said, flashing that same easy grin. "I swear, I'm usually more organized than this." "No problem," I said, gesturing toward the kitchen. "I think you left it near the cabinet." He followed me into the kitchen and we found the missing tool, a small wrench, on the counter. As he picked it up, he glanced at me with a sheepish smile. "Got it," he said. "Sorry for the hassle." "It's no hassle," I replied, leaning against the counter. "Honestly, it's nice to have company. Living alone gets kind of quiet." Nathan looked at me for a moment, his expression softening. "I get that. Sometimes, being on the road all the time feels the same way. You meet people, but it's temporary." The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. It felt like he was peeling back a layer of himself, letting me glimpse something deeper. I hesitated, unsure if I should say what I was thinking, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. "Maybe it doesn't have to be temporary." Nathan's eyes met mine, and the silence that followed was heavy with possibility. My heart pounded as I waited for his response, unsure if I'd just crossed an unspoken line. He stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice low. I swallowed hard, my pulse racing. "I don't know, I feel like there's something here, don't you?" Nathan's expression shifted. Surprise, hesitation, and something else I couldn't quite name. For a moment, I thought I'd made a mistake. But then he reached out, his hand brushing mine. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through me. "I felt it too," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But what?" I pressed, my voice trembling. "It's complicated," he said, stepping back slightly. "You're young, and I don't want to cross a line. I don't even know if this is what you want." I felt a surge of frustration and determination. "Nathan, I'm not a kid. I know what I feel, and I think you do too." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're right, I do. But this isn't simple. We're not simple." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening. "I have to go. Another call." "Of course," I said, trying to hide the sting of disappointment. "Thanks for stopping by." As he walked out the door, he paused and turned back. "This isn't over," he said, his voice steady but conflicted. "I just need to figure out where it's going." I nodded, unable to find the words. When the door closed behind him, I leaned against the counter, my heart heavy with both hope and uncertainty. The days following Nathan's visit felt like a blur. His parting words echoed in my mind. "This isn't over." But what did that mean? Was he wrestling with his own feelings, or was he simply letting me down gently? The uncertainty consumed me, but the memory of his touch, the fleeting connection we shared, kept me clinging to the possibility of something more. I threw myself into work to distract myself, but my mind betrayed me at every turn. I replayed our conversations, dissected his expressions, and imagined what I would say if I saw him again. And then, as if the universe was listening, an opportunity presented itself. Late one afternoon, as I sat at my desk, an email pinged in my inbox. It was from the building manager of my apartment complex informing tenants of an upcoming inspection of plumbing fixtures. Apparently, the complex had contracted an outside company to handle repairs during the inspection week. My heart leapt when I read the company name. It was Nathan's. The inspection was scheduled for 2 days later, and I found myself both nervous and exhilarated at the thought of seeing him again. Would he act like nothing had happened? Would he even acknowledge our last conversation? The questions swirled in my head, but there was no denying the flutter of anticipation in my chest. When the day arrived, I tried to act casual, but the second the knock came at my door, my heart raced. I opened it to find Nathan, standing there, his toolbox in hand and a slightly guarded expression on his face. His green eyes met mine, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual. "I didn't realize this was your apartment." "Surprise," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Here to check the plumbing?" He nodded, stepping inside. "Yeah, just routine stuff, checking for leaks, water pressure, that kind of thing." As he moved around the kitchen, I couldn't help but feel the tension between us. It wasn't the awkward kind. It was charged, like a storm waiting to break. Finally, as he crouched by the sink, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Nathan," I said, my voice steady despite my nerves, "about the other night." He froze for a moment before standing and facing me. "Yeah?" "I meant what I said," I continued. "I feel something when I'm around you, and I can't just ignore it. I don't want to." His expression softened, but there was still a trace of hesitation in his eyes. "You don't make this easy. You know that," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Why does it have to be hard?" I countered. "We're two people who feel something. Isn't that enough?" He ran a hand through his hair, a habit I was starting to recognize as his tell for being deep in thought. "It's not about what I feel, it's about what's right. You're young, and I don't want to take advantage of that. I don't want you to look back and regret this." His words stung, but I refused to back down. "I'm not some naive kid, Nathan. I know what I want, and I think you do too." The air between us felt electric, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Then, as if some invisible barrier finally broke, he closed the distance between us. His hand brushed my cheek, tentative but purposeful. "I've been fighting this," he admitted, his voice low, "because I know once I cross that line, there's no going back." "Maybe I don't want to go back," I replied, leaning into his touch. Before either of us could say another word, the sound of a loud crash echoed through the apartment. We both turned towards the noise, our moment shattered. "What was that?" Nathan asked, his posture immediately tense. "I don't know," I said, my pulse racing. "It came from the hallway." Nathan set down his toolbox and motioned for me to stay back. "Let me check it out." As he stepped into the hallway, I followed at a cautious distance. The source of the noise became clear. A pipe had burst in the laundry room, water gushing out and pooling across the floor. Nathan sprang into action, grabbing tools from his belt and shutting off the main valve. The situation demanded his full attention, but as he worked, I couldn't help but feel a deep admiration for him. The way he handled the crisis with calm determination only solidified what I already knew. I didn't just want Nathan in my life. I needed him. The water had finally stopped, and Nathan stood ankle-deep in the mess, his shirt damp and clinging to his shoulders. Despite the chaos, he maintained his composure, calmly assessing the damage and explaining what needed to be done. "This pipe's been under pressure for a while," he said, glancing back at me. "The burst was inevitable." I nodded, barely processing his words. My focus wasn't on the water pooling at our feet. It was on him. The way his brows furrowed in concentration. The way he moved with purpose, as though solving problems was second nature to him. In that moment, I realized just how much I admired him, not just for his looks or his charm, but for who he was. After securing the pipe, Nathan turned to me, his expression softening. "Sorry about the mess. I'll make sure this gets sorted out." "It's not your fault," I replied, stepping closer. "You've already done so much." Our eyes met, and the tension that had been simmering between us all day bubbled to the surface. He took a breath, as if to steady himself, and then his voice dropped to a softer tone. "You've been on my mind," he admitted, "ever since the first time I came here." My heart skipped a beat. "Really?" He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah. But I kept telling myself it was a bad idea, that I shouldn't." He stopped, his words catching in his throat. "But standing here now, I'm done pretending I don't feel something for you." The weight of his confession hit me like a wave, and I struggled to find the right words. "I feel the same," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't." Nathan stepped closer, the space between us shrinking until I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "You scare me a little," he said, his tone half serious. "You're young. You've got your whole life ahead of you. And me, I've been through enough to know how messy things can get." "I don't care about any of that," I said, my voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through me. "I just care about what's here, what's between us." He hesitated, his gaze searching mine for something. Maybe reassurance, maybe permission. Then, with a sigh of resignation, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a tentative electric kiss. It was soft and cautious at first, but as I responded, his hesitation melted away, replaced by something deeper and more certain. When we finally pulled apart, his hand lingered on my cheek. "I didn't plan for this," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and vulnerability. "But I don't think I can walk away now." "Then don't," I replied, my heart pounding. "Stay. Let's figure this out together." Before he could respond, the sound of voices echoed from the hallway. A maintenance crew had arrived to address the burst pipe. Nathan stepped back, the moment between us shifting as reality intruded. "Looks like we've got company," he said, his tone light but his expression still serious. "I'll stick around to make sure everything's handled." I nodded, feeling a mix of frustration and anticipation. The kiss had confirmed what I already knew. There was something undeniable between us. But it also raised questions about what came next. Could we navigate the complications, the differences in our lives? Or would the very things that brought us together ultimately pull us apart? As the crew worked on the pipe, Nathan stayed close, his presence grounding me. We didn't say much, but the occasional glance or brush of his hand against mine spoke volumes. There was an understanding between us now, a silent agreement to explore whatever this was, no matter how uncertain or messy it might be. When the repairs were finished, Nathan gathered his tools and turned to me. "I'll check in tomorrow to make sure everything's working properly," he said, his tone professional but his eyes betraying the depth of his feelings. "I'll be here," I replied, unable to hide the smile tugging at my lips. As he walked out the door, I felt a mix of emotions, excitement, fear, and a deep, unshakable hope. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Nathan had broken down the barriers I didn't even realize I'd built around my heart. The next day, Nathan returned as promised. This time there were no excuses, no doubts, just the two of us, ready to face whatever lay ahead. We talked for hours, opening up about our fears and dreams, and for the first time, everything felt clear. "I don't care about the complications," I said, holding his gaze. "I just care about you." Nathan smiled, his hand finding mine. "Then let's stop overthinking. Let's just be us." In that moment, all the uncertainty melted away. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other. And for now, that was enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to follow our channel for more emotionally captivating stories like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if faced with a connection like this? Let's keep the conversation going.